Manchester City score a huge and historic victory as the Premier League sponsorship rules are declared void. Manchester City, as we reported on and reacted to a few months ago, won their case where 3 of the 10-20 charges put against the Premier League for the APT rule, the ATP rules being unlawful, were won and were victorious by Manchester City. The Premier League has put together amendments to maintain the APT rules. The Premier League has told its members that they are lawful. It has said that they comply with the feedback from that tribunal, which they lost to Manchester City. As we know, this was then challenged again by the legal teams of Manchester City as they were backed by Aston Villa, by Newcastle, and by Nottingham Forest. The Premier League have lost. They haven't just lost and been told to amend the rules. They have been declared void and will be removed. There now may be massive compensation claims, huge lawsuits against the Premier League as well, not just for the clubs who have lost out on big sponsorship opportunities, but on top of that, clubs who have sided with the Premier League who may feel misled by what they have been told. The Premier League is undoubtedly in crisis. Manchester City win. The Premier League lose. Give us your thoughts and feelings below. I want to start by saying that this has absolutely nothing to do with the other case, to do with the 115 charges. A lot of people are already online talking about this. They are separate matters altogether. There is no connection between the two in anybody's eyes. I thought I saw a sticker on my arm there. But this is massive for Manchester City. They are vindicated. And for me, I keep the same energy that I've put out in relation to this. I understood the need for the ATP rules, and I understood why lots of clubs wanted them. I understand why the owners of, say, Brighton, who don't have the money, don't have the connections that the owners of Newcastle, Nottingham Forest, and Manchester City have. I understand why they would want these to be in place. The real problem here is not wanting these rules to be part of the Premier League. It's the unlawful way the Premier League put them together. They lost a court case in relation to this. They restructured them, and Manchester City and anyone who said City were wrong has got to hold their hands up and say they were correct, rushed the amendments through, and have now had the entire thing deemed void. There will be some frustrated clubs tonight. There will be some frustrated rival fans out there tonight. But whether you like it or not, Manchester City, on this particular case, have proven the rule to be unlawful, to have problems with it, and therefore it has been removed. It is void. Here's a segment from the Times who broke this news where they say the Premier League has been dealt a devastating blow in the legal battle with Manchester City after its sponsors' rules enforced between 2021 and 2024 were declared void. An independent tribunal ruled in October last year that 3 elements of the rules regarding to associated party transactions were unlawful, in particular around loans from owners and shareholders to clubs. So remember, 3 of the 20 elements were deemed unlawful. They had the opportunity to go away and amend these and make these changes so it was a lawful rule. City's interpretation was the initial decision was that the ATP rule in their entirety were void, and that the unlawful elements could not simply be struck off. The Premier League dismissed these concerns and pushed ahead with amending, which were approved by 16 of the 20 top 5 Premier League clubs in November. The rules introduced in December 2021 in the wake of the Saudi League takeover of Newcastle United were designed to maintain the competitiveness of the Premier League by preventing clubs from inflating commercial deals with companies linked to their owners. The club rules have now been amended in 2024. It goes on to state here that the tribunal made up, and I'm going to keep reading this on my screen so you guys can see it as well. So the tribunal made up of 3 senior legal figures held a further 2-day hearing last month to discuss the issue whether the rules as a whole were still valid without the unlawful elements, and concluded they were void and unenforceable. So the Premier League declared afterwards that it was going to amend and make these changes. It has now just been deemed no. There's nothing you can do. You've implemented them wrong. You've applied them wrong. We don't believe that they represent fairness. Therefore, they're gone. And this is one of those things where it doesn't matter what side of the fence you sit on. Well, I suppose it does in terms of having an opinion. This has been reviewed by independent legal bodies. Some of you are going to cry corruption. Some of you are going to cry they've been paid off. You've got to have proof before you start making those types of accusations. And the Premier League have made a mistake. They've made a mistake. They've messed up. They've been beaten by Man City, and they have to hold the L. Now, the crisis isn't just the poorly implemented rules. The adjustments they've made afterwards now being thrown back in their face. What of the future legal action? Now, there is potential for Man City, for Nottingham Forest, for all clubs to sue. Who knows the deals that loads of other clubs have turned down to comply with these rules, now realizing they could have gone in a different way. This plunges the Premier League into crisis, because how long is this going to go on for? Will they all sue is the big question. I think what will most certainly happen is the Premier League are going to have to foot the bill for Manchester City's legal bills. You may pretty quickly see new sponsorship deals announced, new revenue streams created for a lot of the top clubs in England, some of the smaller ones as well, there's no doubt. But will they actually go as far as to start suing the Premier League for hundreds of millions of pounds? I don't know. And the reason why I say I don't know is, let's say all the clubs end up suing the Premier League for hundreds of millions of pounds each. You could bankrupt the Premier League. Then there's no league. And what's the point of your club? If there's you want to be in the Premier League, you want to own it, the owners want to own a club in the Premier League, they want to be in the Premier League. If you sue it out of existence, which I'm seeing some people ask for, it becomes a little bit counterproductive. What's the point? Who are your sponsors going to sponsor? A club that are in no league? Are you going to leave England and play in another country? No, that can't happen. I think what you'll see happen here is a number of senior figures rightfully move on, rightfully be sacked. The likes of Richard Masters has to go. I think he has to leave with immediate effect. City's legal bills paid, an apology given out to City, to Forest, and any other club that opposed it. I don't know whether they'll put in any additional rules or whether they'll have something similar. I'm not too sure. We'll wait and see. But these things have to happen. I then think what you'll see is the clubs will kind of then shake hands, move on. You already got to remember, a lot of these clubs are already working to get... So you might have the two Manchester clubs against each other on this vote, but they're both fighting to get the spending cap removed that's meant to be implemented in a year or so's time. So the clubs are all not... No, I don't believe in red cartels, blue cartels, claret cartels. I think clubs vote for individual rules based on what's best for their football club. You saw Everton do this perfectly. They were on City's side for the ATP ruling until they saw that the shareholder element would then change, which would impact them. So they switch sides. It's nothing to do with red and blue cartels. It's what's best for me. So I think the clubs can move on from this pretty easily. I wouldn't be too worried about that. You see them all often interacting at grounds. It doesn't look like there's too much animosity amongst the boards and the owners. I also don't think they'll absolutely sue the living daylights out the Premier League, as I already mentioned. What's the long-term benefit of that if the Premier League collapses because of the volume of legal cases against it? There'll end up being a certain amount of money paid. I think some heads will roll, the rules void, so the rules will change, and then I think we will move on. But what this does implement, and when you read the article, it goes into detail about this, that the Premier League are being scrutinized for not managing and implementing its rules correctly. And that is more of a concern for me than this particular situation. How many clubs that are sailing close to the sort of the PSR situation don't need to be? How many? It's a genuine question. How badly run is this house? Does it need that independent commission regulator to come in and help manage these situations to make sure laws are not being broke, that rules are being implemented properly, that everybody is being treated correctly and fairly? You would say so. At the end of the day, this just plunges the league into some chaos, into a crisis, there's no doubt. But look, City have come out as winners here. And if they lost this court case, the people that would come at them, laugh at them, you're frauds, etc., etc., you'd be out here in glee. So an apology is needed. And from my perspective, I always keep the energy the same. I said that about the 115. If they're proven innocent, I'll stand by them. If they're proven guilty, I'll condemn them. On this case, they were right. So fair play to Manchester City. And unless you can provide me with evidence and proof that they have bribed their way to this, paid off QCs, I don't really want to hear it. I don't really want to hear it. Until you can provide me the evidence that City have done something wrong to win this, I don't want to hear that nonsense. The Premier League and everybody that... Listen, I'm not overly disappointed in the rule going. I think if you go back to the video back in October, November, when this court case was announced, I look at it this way. Man United are owned by a huge company. I'm now hoping that some people associated to Ineos can now sponsor us and we can raise the revenues pretty quickly. So I'm not... I said it on that video and I'll say it again now. I'm not disappointed wholeheartedly that this rule is going. But that's because my club's Man United and we make a huge amount of money and there's a potential now to make more, theoretically. So I'm not against this. But for all of you that were, you've got to hold your hands up. You've got to hold your hands up. For anyone, and I'll put myself in this category, that was thinking, the Premier League can't make the amendments and it still stay unlawful, surely. They wouldn't be that stupid. I've got to take an L on that. I didn't think they would be that dumb. They are. They misled us. Richard Masters has got to go. But as I say, I don't know if this is the right word, but congratulations to Manchester City for exposing this. The Premier League's about to change, people. Take care. Goodbye. God bless. And I'll see you all again soon. Peace.